I think the realist correction to, well, a lot of this assumption, again, based on liberal theory, was that interdependence would be this absolute gain that would produce peace. I think the realist approach to political economy focus more on the relative gains, so who gains the most. And I think this interdependence you saw between the Americans and the Chinese is every year production power shifted from the US to China. Every year China developed a more advanced technology. Every year, the Chinese were climbing up the global value chains, disrupting the international distribution of labor. And U.S. debt kept growing, and the Chinese kept taking it over. So, the relative shift in power, I think, always put a pressure to. We reached a point now where um, the Americans are concerned about how big China is, and of course, China also feels that it's grown too big for the American-led regional security architecture. So, this mutual suspicion, I think, was yes, destined to create some tensions. It's just hoping there would be some yeah, magical solution to alleviate this. But I have to say, as a you can say the Chinese who follow the Confucian ideology, nonetheless, they nonetheless seem to be very accommodating of your ideas, as I keep saying on Chinese, yeah, political discussions. So,
If I could make one quick
yeah,
point, Glenn, additional point. Uh, when I first started going to China in the early 2000s to talk about the rise of China, the argument that was most frequently used in China regarding why China could rise peacefully was not the Confucianism argument. That was certainly used. But the argument that was used most frequently was the economic interdependence argument, which you were just alluding to. And it was very interesting. The Chinese believed that as they got richer and richer, and they got hooked on capitalism, and economic interdependence became the order of the day, that there was no way the United States and China could go to war because you would, in effect, be killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. In other words, prosperity depended on the absence of war and the prevalence of cooperation between the United States and China. And everybody was interested in prosperity. That was the principal goal of China, and that was the principal goal of the United States. So economic interdependence would be the magic formula, and it would reinforce Confucian ideology.